It is now 12. And I'm calling this special meeting.
Hey, Deb, you're cutting out.
I'm sorry. Did
You might
did I
want-
drop off for a minute?
Yeah,
Good.
you might want to turn your camera off and just go audio.
Okay. Okay, since I can't see the agenda
Oh, there's Chris.
from I can't see the agenda
Let me.
from my phone.
Oh. Okay, so Lisa Peterson is going to do the land acknowledgement.
Okay. Lisa, would you start that for us, please? Lisa,
Yes.
would you please read the land acknowledgement for us?
Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you guys for the longest time. I was having issues. All right, let me see. Thank you. Goodness cheats to the Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian people. We respectfully acknowledge them as the original inhabitants of Southeast Alaska. Bartlett Regional Hospital is located on the homelands of the Yaqwan. We are grateful to provide services in your ancestral homeland and to be a part of this community.
Thank you, Lisa. Anita, do you have the roll call?
I have noted the roll. All board members are present with the exception of Dr. Raster.
Who's excused? Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second
Do we
that.
have a second? Okay, thank you, Chris. Do we have anyone online who would like to participate or in the room? I can't see the room, but since I've heard nothing, I'm assuming that we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the FY26 budget. Mr. Cave, could you please present that for us?
Yes, ma'am.
And we have an action item as well.
Yes, ma'am. If you'll turn to page 3 with me, we're gonna look at the budget in a couple of different ways. The first way is a line item budget. This is what we'll see on our monthly meetings for Finance Committee and board. And so I'm going to just kind of walk down through. You can see the columns: actual 2024, budget 2025, year to date 25 through December, and annualized 2025, which is really just an extrapolation of the year to date column. There's no magic there. It's just it's completely an extrapolation. And then the right hand column is the 26 budget. So as we look at the 26 budget, I'll go quickly. If you need me to stop, please stop. Please feel free to stop me. Total inpatient revenue. We're looking at 84,840,000. And the way we arrive at that, you can see that it's 840,000 short of an annualized 2025. The way we get there is we've added a 4% increase, which is about $1.5 million. We've decreased inpatient revenue by 3% based on a shift in census, a downward shift in census for the second half of the year. And that equates to about 2.3 million. So that brings us to our 840 variance. In terms of outpatient revenue, we're looking at 176 million compared to 172 million annualized. And the change there is again about $5 million representative of our 4% increase and $2 million of orthopedics that we've added on. and then again, netted against the downward census change. So then we go to our other revenue, which is RRC, BOPS, and physician. We've done not too much with that. We've just extrapolated those numbers out to where BOPS is coming in about 200,000 above the annualized 2025. Physician revenue was increased by about 400,000 in anticipation of a new family practice clinic opening during the year. So then deductions, going down to deductions from revenue, we're anticipating deductions to be a little bit higher than they have been year to date. Year to date, we're at 44.5%, including bad debt and charity. That number has increased to 45.2%. The reason for the increase is that when we run a 4% increase through the books, that 4% is not dollar for dollar pickup on the bottom line. So some of that 4% adds additional contractual allowance to the income statement. So the addition from 44.5 to 45.2 is the additional contractual that will be needed to cover that 4% price increase. And we get then to net patient revenue at just under what we have called our annualized 2025. And I would also point out, as was pointed out in our finance meeting, that the annualized 2025 includes RRC revenue, which is no longer available. Other operating is budgeted at the current rates. It is primarily related to dietary income at about 2/3 of that $1 million. We go to expenses. All of the categories in expenses, salaries and wages, physician wages, contract labor, have all been budgeted using the most current run rates for those categories. So we've taken, what we look at we've actually taken a couple of things. We've taken all of the employees and run them through their steps to get the increases appropriate for the year. And then we've also used some trending to finish those off. And we have trended contract labor at the rates that we see most currently. So in November and December, we looked at that contract labor and determined that it was going to be at least current amount going forward. And when we hire additional employees full time, then it'll be a 1-for-1 wash with contract labor. Medical professional fees, you can see has gone down, moving down to other expenses. Medical professional fees has declined. It has basically declined based on conversations with the department heads and what they felt their needs would be in the month. The largest areas of decline have been the emergency department, lab, and sleep. And so came out just about 129,000 below our annualized 2025. Physician contracts, we have increased in a couple of areas. We've increased anesthesia to where we believe the levels will fall, as well as BOPS. Our non-medical professional fees, again, we've trended those out at the most current rates, and the most significant change was actually a decline in facilities, but we're budgeting about 200,000 above our annualized amount. Materials and supplies, about 900,000 above the annualized amount. The primary category of change there is a 4% increase in our pharmaceutical supplies, which makes up a very large component of that line item. Utilities, maintenance have been budgeted based on conversations with the directors where he feels like we're going to be throughout the year. Rentals and leases are budgeted at our current rates, as are insurance. We budgeted our current rate, but we were also given some help from the city, so we match up almost exactly with the numbers recommended by the city. Depreciation and amortization according to our schedules. Interest expense, again, at current rates. And other operating expenses went up a little bit because we added some education for departments where we felt it was necessary. And again, the biggest component of that line item we talked about in Finance Committee is our credit card fees are about 500,000. And we talked about looking at ways to reduce that number, but at present, we're budgeted at current rates. Interest income, budgeted again at current rates, a little bit above where the city has told us they would be, but we feel comfortable with that interest income number. And then the other non-operating expense you'll notice is negative. The reason it's negative is because it includes our rents, which is about $370,000, netted against the $667,000 payment that we said we were going to make to the city. That brings us to for the year 2026, that brings us to a net income of $3.468 million. I'm happy to entertain any questions before we move on. You want to go along with me to page 6 of 11? We've already talked about most of our assumptions. State revenue was budgeted 750 last year. It's budgeted 150 this year. In terms of debt service, the most significant component of our bond debt, we've told we wouldn't have to make a principal payment on this year. And we've already talked about interest income. We move on, and there is a correction to page 7 that is put on the last page as an addendum. What you'll notice is that the addendum did not change significantly. The total, the addendum was made because of the classification of contract labor. We had originally been told to put contract labor into the personnel services line, and then later indicated to us that they prefer to see contract labor in the commodities and services line. So the difference is we just moved from one line to the other. Capital outlay, you can see, is at 5.9 million. We've got later on in the pages here, we've got the capital requests as well. So we'll go through that at that point. Debt service again, 1.7 million. That's primarily interest. Then capital projects at 3 million and general fund at 667, which we've already talked about. Funding sources. Talked about our revenue, total funding sources, patient revenue and other operating revenue, totaling $143,760,900 on page 8, with $150,000 of state revenue. investment income that we've already looked at, and land revenue. As if you remember, I told you land revenue was about 370,000 netted against 667 on our income statement. And then back to fund balance. Fund balance simply adding in the increase or decrease based on net income for those periods. We have a page for questions and comments. I'd like to, if you don't mind, go ahead and let's look at the capital budget before we move on to additional questions. The page 11 is our capital request for the year. You can see the 5972 that rolled into our statement. And that includes some server infrastructure requests of about $3.5 million. Most of the other items are either priority 1 or 2. They're items that we definitely need over the next year. And now I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Hey Chuck, this is Chris Letterman. I've got just one question on that sheet in the capital.
Yes, sir.
The certain items that don't have a priority list, do you anticipate having a priority list for those?
Don't have a priority list.
So I think there's not a line number, but there's one there for the lab that doesn't have a priority noted.
Yeah, no, that would be at some point we'll have to, that'll be a construction project, so we'll have to request it differently.
Okay. And then obviously the 3 there for IT have not been prioritized. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, the reason is because they are, like for instance, the refresh, it's gonna happen over time. So it'll cover a large span of time. It is definitely a need. No particular reason that he didn't give me a priority, but you know, if I were to tell you, I would say that over 3 years, we absolutely need to replace all of the workstations.
Yeah.
Not patient, it's not patient centered though.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, if I could follow up on that, on Chris's question and the response. For the workstation replacement and the IT, the servers, we discussed at the last meeting that they're going to come back to us with more information as those kind of get a little bit more firm, and then we'll have another cut at them as the first finance and then, or planning, I guess. So.
Thank you, Max.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Al.
Yes, Chuck, maybe you already explained this and I snoozed through it, but I'm on slide 8 or page 8. It's the funding sources.
Yes, sir.
And for the 143 million plus 1.2 million doesn't add up to 157 million. So where's the other source that's coming into this to get us up to 157 million?
It's the other operating revenue.
Other operating. That appears. Where does that appear?
It's just below net patient revenue.
Just below net patient revenue on a different slide.
Do you have a hidden row there, Chuck, on that slide? I see what Al's talking about.
It's a confusing slide.
It is because it's adding both patient revenue and other revenue together.
I'm sorry, I'm shuffling here through the slides. Where do I find that other source of money to get us up to 157? What slide?
Page 3. I'm trying to back into it while we're sitting here also.
Are you talking about line 39, total non-operating revenue?
Yeah,
That doesn't get us up there either.
Yeah, the difference is 11,000,000, 575, 539.
yeah, this is a little unusual, but if you wouldn't mind my getting up and walking over to my computer and taking a quick look.
Yeah, why don't you do that? That's,
I'd like for us all to understand how it reconciles.
Okay, go ahead. Anita, can we take an at ease and stop the recording while Chuck leaves the room?
The answer to your question is that there's a bad number in the slide, a couple of bad numbers in the slide. What it should read is charges for services, 155,867. State revenue, 150. Investment and interest income, as I told you, we used on the budget our trend, but on the city report, they're using the city estimate, which is 888,700 for investment and interest income. And then for land lease revenue, 377,900. They've given us $200,000 from the general fund, which does in fact equal 157,483,600.
They gave us 200,000?
Yes. They've budgeted 200,000.
Did they say for what? Sorry, I'm not allowed to ask questions.
yeah, that, if we could just maybe, let's kind of regroup here a little bit. So we've got there's a couple things that are coming up here, and I think let's just keep our eye on the ball here. So we're looking for budget approval of the budget that we approved on page 3 of our packet. And I after I get done here, Deb, I'd like to make a motion to that effect. And then with respect to the budget schedule, I would like to work with Joe and Chuck to make sure that we've got correct schedules to send down to the city. And that would be number one. And then if there's some items that we're noting that are inconsistent, that they're proposing inconsistent with our budget, that Joe can interact with them about that, with CBJ about that. And if we have to take some future action on that as a board, we can do that. There's a question about whether the 200,000, we want to keep that in there or not. So that would be my recommendation. Go ahead and make a budget motion to approve the budget on page 3, and then work with Joe and Chuck on the CBJ schedules.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. If we resolve the issue with the 200,000, I guess my question is, we've got, when is it due? When is our deadline for submission?
Tomorrow.
Final submission?
Tomorrow, Deb?
That's what I thought. Can we resolve this today and in our meeting tomorrow, just do a quick aside and
we don't have time for public notice.
oh, that's true.
Yeah, I think the 200,000 is something, it's almost like we could just administratively, I mean, if we need to come back to the board at a future date and say CBJ was determined to give us 200,000, it could be that Adrian or whoever developed the budget for us downtown wasn't aware of the fact that we're planning on repaying the 667. And so once they do that, they're going to want to change it on their side and won't require any action by us at all.
Okay. I'm fine with that as long as everyone else is. It sounds like that's the will of the group.
Well, how about if I just make a motion and then we'll get a second and then have any discussion if anybody's got comments?
Yes,
Okay. Let's see, I move Bartlett Regional Hospital Board of Directors to approve the FY26 budgets presented for transmittal to CVJ Assembly. Management will come back with more information to the Planning and/or Finance and Audit Committee as appropriate for the converged server infrastructure and workstation refresh listed in the capital budget.
I'd second that, Madam Chair.
is there any objection from the members of the board, the rest of the members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, this motion is approved. And I believe that brings us to the end of our agenda. Unless there are any other comments.
I do
Or
have a quick
questions?
comment, if I could just, to Chuck and Joe, if you guys could get the budget schedules straightened out, look at all the columns, make sure they're all correct, and then forward them my way, and maybe we can hop on a quick meeting and talk about them later today.
That's good.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, John.
and then can we just send out an update to the board?
Thank you. I'll do an email to everyone with the BCC budget.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned at 12:38. Thank you all, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.